excited that you're here, each and every one of you all. This is a treasure. I am so excited to introduce track and field to Albert Claiborne and what he has to offer. And Ian is going to do the pleasure, our current president, is going to do the pleasure of introducing Al to us, track and field community. All right. Good job, Ian.
All right. Hey, thanks everybody for coming. And on behalf of USA Track and Field Georgia Association, we're stepping up the game. Believe it or not, we're broadcasting this is live, so make sure that you're not picking your nose, looking at your phone. And I'll ask everybody to kind of turn their phone off because we need to make sure that we have all the bandwidth to send aside. So, with that said, I want to introduce Al Claiborne, who has more than 25 years of experience in personal training, healthy living. Al blends experience of education and fitness technology to help his FitFX clients achieve their fitness goals. And as the creator and director of Claiborne FitFX Training Center, Al has helped housewives, CEOs, teachers, professional athletes, Army Rangers, if we last talked about this, SEAL team. So he's a bad man to deal with those bad men and women. And he combines his Navy SEAL training experience, certification in sports nutrition and exercise science, total body mechanics, and his additional studies in the science of nutrition, which is key to getting your way to the podium. In fact, if you know, a lot of us, we've worked with the Eat Your Way to the Podium project, which is one of the USATF events that we put on the last couple weeks. So with that said, Al, take it away.
Thank you. Thank you guys for coming to the club and giving me a chance to hang out with me and experience what I do pretty much every day. This is going to be a little bit different because typically I'm used to doing shows where we have breaks, clean up, and then I get a chance to come back and look like I make this look really easy. But it's not going to be so hard it's going to be a little bit different because it's live. And I'm not accustomed to doing live shows, but I'm going to wing it, see how I do, and let you guys be the judge. Now, fitness has been a part of my life since I was a kid. And my parents raised me up that way. Been involved in sports since I was 8, as long as I can remember really. And became a coach very early, like 16. I started working with our high school track team. Before, just because of the bodybuilding experience that I had in powerlifting, I started competing at 15, and my weight training has been the largest part of my experience coming out of high school and college. I competed collegiately in powerlifting, went on to bodybuilding after that, competed as a natural bodybuilder for 15 years, and retired just 15 years ago. I'm going into I'm 50 now, going into my later years, and and pushing, still being an advocate of fitness and switching gears. So I built this facility to accommodate athletes, celebrities, clients of mine that needed a place to focus on their training without the interruption of what a public club would offer them. So a lot of times it would be, when I was on tour, we'd run into issues where a lot of the public would want to know who you're working with, and it would be a lot of interruptions. Strength and conditioning program for athletes. So if you guys are looking for something that's near downtown and you need a place to train that's private and that you can focus on your craft. If you're a coach or an athlete, I invite you both that you guys can come in and bring your athletes and work privately with them. And we can also teach them nutrition, which to me is really the very base of any kind of athletic training you're going to do. I had the privilege of working with a few professional fighters, and I guess that's where I got my feet wet, dealing with conditioning and the importance of nutrition, because I saw how dated the information was that the coaches were getting and applying to their training. And moving into it, you know, athletes are the most superficial people. I mean, not superficial, let me change that. Superstitious. I'm talking about myself. No, really, the most superstitious in the area of what's tried and true for them. And as coaches, we're afraid to kind of step out of the box a little bit and push it too hard on the concepts that have not been tried and true. But I think what we have to do is not only follow our common sense, but follow our intuition. Because sometimes it tells you that, you know, it's okay to push it a little bit and try some things that are new and incorporate a multifaceted training program for your athletes. We get one shot sometimes when we're dealing with someone who is on the breaking point of trying to figure out whether this could be a career thing or whether they can, you know, hang it up. And we as coaches and we as athletes sometimes can make that difference by one statement or incorporating something that's old hat, and then the person is discouraged and they fall away. And I deal with that a lot with clients all the time. They'll come in and they'll be a little discouraged by something that they've heard, or, you know, they're on their last leg of trying to make it work, if they're trying to lose weight or if they're, you know, competing for a competition or what have you. And I'm pretty optimistic when it comes to this. I believe that with nutrition and proper training, you can do anything. And I guess that's what, you know, that's what's pushing me in that, you know, in a concept that's more broad, and I wanted to incorporate the other mindset of dealing with other coaches and people who are idea people around different sports. So when I talked to Gwen, she was explaining to me about the opportunity of having you guys come and visit and check out the facility. I looked at it as maybe a co-op that we can almost create a united front dealing with our American athletes moving forward. And not only just American athletes, but athletes abroad. I mean, we understand what it's like to compete and how important it is for the spirit, and how we can make or break a person if we don't have the proper resources or the proper information. And networking with other trainers, other athletes, nutritionists, strength coaches, just gives us a huge arsenal of resources that we can use to have better competition with athletes that we're pushing ourselves as athletes. So what I did today, I tried to figure out. I mean, last night I kind of like tossed and turned, didn't get much sleep, trying to figure out what I could do, to teach you guys today. What could it be that I can teach you that you don't know? And I really was stumped. So I said, instead of me trying to figure that out, why don't I do something that could cause you to create an idea of thought, an area of thought, meaning that we live in a microwave world, and a lot of us have busy schedules, being athletes, being coaches, and how do we create something that is time-saving, that we can kind of still cover all the bases, maybe not in one or two simple meals, but something that is like a quick grab and go, and that would still give us a spice of life and make us feel normal, because I was tired of wheatgrass shots and eating chicken, baked chicken all the time. So, and I know you guys kind of understand that concept. So I created I looked at what we need as athletes: protein, fatty acids, carbohydrates, some of our not so healthy palates, like desserts. What could we get away with, that's still healthy? So I came up with the spritzers that you guys tasted earlier. They're pretty healthy, and you can have them without worrying about your waistline or without it impairing your workouts. And then I thought about what could be a food that you could have that would be relatively quick. You can prepare and kind of nibble off of it throughout the day or throughout the week, even if I can make it easy. And I decided to come up with some salmon wraps that was wrapped in kelp. And the reason why I chose those is because, of course, migrant fish have it has quality fatty acids that your body could use. It's great for circulation, good for your blood. And the kelp, a lot of us don't get enough of kelp in our, well, not just kelp, but iodine in our diets. And we don't get it from the common foods that we think are simply healthy. We look at broccoli, spinach, cauliflower, some of your cruciferous vegetables, and we think that, okay, those are covering all bases. But one thing that's important to athletes is your thyroid. Thyroid health is super important for metabolism, and some of the nutrients that you can access in your diet that can help with your thyroid or help with your training is volumizing your blood, volumizing your heart, you're dilating your circulation, your circulatory system, arteries, veins, stuff like that, delivering oxygenated blood to the muscles, helping you with your performance would be your iodine. And we pay very little attention to iodine in our diets. It is super important for athletes. And one way of getting it without eating shellfish, for a lot of people they're allergic to shellfish, they can get it from using kelp as a vegetable. And of course, I mean, most of us know that kelp comes from the ocean and is seaweed. And a lot of us who are sushi lovers get a lot of it. But those of us who are allergic to seafood or allergic to shellfish, will typically shy away from anything that comes out of the ocean, even fish, unless it's freshwater fish. So what I looked at doing is putting together salmon. I used sesame seed and flaxseed. I used, what else did I use in that? Kelp and brown rice. Brown rice would give you the carbohydrates that you need for your training. And depending on the size of athlete, the activity that you're doing, if you're shot putters or people who are using a lot of muscle in their training, then I would recommend that your protein requirements, of course, and your carbohydrates would be higher than if you are an endurance athlete. Your fats should be modified. And I'd recommend for women between 35 and 40 grams of protein per pound of muscle. And for your strength components, strength athletes, I recommend up to 55 grams. And I would ramp it up 10% for guys who are training in strength. Ramp it up 10% during your strength training for recovery and for regenerating the muscle. And for women, 5% of the increase of protein and carbohydrates. The ratio of fats modified for endurance athletes would help with, of course, fat is a slower burning fuel, and it's great. It's a great fuel source during your aerobic training, and during your aerobic training, after your aerobic training, during your strength training, just know that the meals, 72 hours in between that time, I would recommend that you increase your carbohydrates so that you'll have enough glycogen in your muscles to sustain you during your strength training. Definitely incorporate fiber in your diet. We don't get enough of it as athletes, and it can help you with keeping your system more efficient, your digestive system, and it can aid in lowering your cholesterol from the heavy fats and protein that you're getting from eggs and meat protein. We tend to overuse protein in our training, and that's why I think the grams of protein per pound of muscle is important to pay attention to, because when you go to GNC and you get your protein powder and your protein foods, we tend to pay more attention to that than we do the importance of carbohydrates to preserve our muscles during our heavy training. And if you don't pay attention to it, you'll wonder why you have up and downs in your training. The other thing I'd like to speak on is stabilizing blood sugar, which is another important component to athletic performance. You're only as good as your training, and the days where you have ups and downs, we really don't have the benefit of that. If you're trying to make, a training calendar, because then your peak, you're up and down on your strength and your endurance. Something as simple as water and hydration. A little bit of dehydration can reduce your strength and performance by 10%. And you know as well as I do as an athlete, 10% is way too much to compromise during your performance and during your training. In order to stabilize that, pay attention to those ratios and make sure that you stay well hydrated, because it definitely boosts not only your strength, but your ability to rid itself of toxins, and it definitely supports your developing tissues, lubricates joints. I mean, the common stuff that you guys pretty much know. Other than that, I'm open to any questions that you guys may have. You can reach me at my Facebook page, FitFX, and you can call me anytime. And you guys can definitely come by, because you guys are with the track association. You guys can come by and check out classes. I'll open up some things to you guys, and I recommend for sure that you guys look at this as a training opportunity to improve your sport. And I won't get in your way. We have our free weight room is definitely going to be something to be recognized because of some of the components that we're going to have that's new and introduced to the track world. And we'll pull you guys into that loop in a lot of different ways. So when you guys leave your emails so I can kind of keep you guys updated on what's going on. And I'm sure Ian will. And I'll get to putting together this meal for you guys. You guys have any questions while I'm doing this, feel free. Go ahead.
So kale is okay to use for people that have allergies to shellfish?
Well, kelp. Kelp is a seaweed. And yes, most definitely. Iodine, well, unless you're allergic to iodine, but typically people don't have that allergy, and I don't know of any case that I've ever heard where people are allergic to iodine, but kelp definitely will support you in iodine if you can't get it from shellfish. Any other questions? I'm I'm gonna go ahead and start putting this together for you guys and explain to you what I'm gonna do. I used seaweed to do these wraps, and what I used with them was an organic brown rice, and I cooked the brown rice in a chicken broth that was low sodium and low in fat, so they can give it some flavor. Because you guys know as well as I do, I'm not a big fan of brown rice. That's just, straight. So I put that together, and the way I did my salmon, I used fresh rosemary, and I baked it in olive oil, with a little bit of olive oil, and sesame seeds, flaxseed, a little bit of ginger, and some garlic, pureed garlic. And it's really tasty. I'll give you guys a chance to check this out, and I promise I won't eat the whole thing. So these are the wraps that I'm using, and this is seaweed. And what you're going to do is lay that seaweed out, and I'm going to scoop this out with a spoon, or there we go. Scoop it out, lay it across this seaweed, just like so. And it's just like making a sushi roll. I know some of you guys are cooks. Anybody in here cook? Yeah?
Cousin, we going over your house to eat?
Okay. Anybody sushi fans? Yeah. Athletes, most athletes are. And what I'm going to do with this is I lay this salmon across it just like this. Pick the ones that fit, and you're going to make one good roll of it just like that. I wouldn't go any more than that, because then you have enough to use for another salmon roll.
So those are completely dry, you didn't wet them or anything?
No, you don't really have to. Yeah, they're completely dry, but one thing you're going to find is that they're really kind of almost like plastic. So the consistency of them it's pretty tight. I need my other knife.
So Al, what about us Southern people that love seasoning?
Okay.
What does that do to the nutritional value of our food? If we're adding seasoning, some Lowry's, or something of that nature?
Seasonings are fine, unless you have an allergy to it. I wouldn't recommend it if there's certain seasonings that if you don't watch them, they can be a little toxic, and that would be your basil. I mean, not basil, but your hold on just a second. This is not turning out to be right. I don't have my right knives. You guys, sorry.
I guess it's against it from the front.
Oh, that's perfect. And I'll let you guys sample one of those.
So not basil,
Hmm?
not basil.
No, it's what am I thinking of? I'm sorry, it's not basil.
All right.
It's bay leaves. Bay leaves can be toxic to some people, and it's one of those herbs that you're recommended to be very careful with as a cook, Any other common allergens are like peanuts and dairy and things like this. But you know, one thing that I've found, and you guys can, those of you guys who know nutrition can back me up with this, but they're finding now that your unpasteurized milk is very different with people who have dairy allergies, because the enzyme that actually protects you from bacteria and what have you is being removed. But it used to be, back in the 40s when they started pasteurizing milk, was that the unsanitary conditions of dairy farmers was really the issue. There's, you know, well, we're not going to get to, I mean, we got some people who are eating, so I'm not going to get into the reason why the milk was contaminated. But
Stomachs of steel.
yeah, well, it was, when you're looking back, I mean, looking forward onto where nutrition has evolved now, they're finding a lot of things that was bad before is actually pretty good for you. And unpasteurized milk is great for athletes. They're finding out now that chocolate milk is really good for athletes. And now you got commercials that are pushing chocolate milk. This is going to be a bigger role for some of our bigger guys. I'm going to rush in that one. So, yeah, I rushed that one.
Now, Al, you said it was toxic. In what way? What is the toxic effect
Of the,
of the baby?
It's not going to kill you.
well,
I mean, what could I
It
know?
can make you
How would I know if it's toxic?
well, it's bay leaf in abundance can be considered a poison if it's too concentrated. It can really make you sick.
Okay.
And not everybody's created equal when it comes to their tolerance for certain things. And for instance, a person may make it really make a soup or a, what do you use bay leaf in? There you go. And it might go really heavy on the bay leaf.
Now, and I know people are thinking about it. Is that going to get me on the ban list? Because when you say some toxicity, is an abundance of bay leaf going to hit me on you side of the ban list?
No.
Okay.
It won't affect you that way. It won't affect you that way. It'll affect your performance. It may give you an upset stomach. Those are just the herbs I'm talking about when you are looking for a diet you want to spice up your diet a little bit. You might want to use bay leaf in your beans or your soups or what have you. Just too much bay leaf. And I'm just using it as an example of so many herbs out there that in abundance can become poison. So you just, do your research and don't take everyone's word for what herbs and spices will do as far as, don't just center it around taste. Look at what it's going to do for you performance-wise, because it can hurt you as far as your energy and in the critical times when you are pushing your training and working with your athletes. Be aware of what you're feeding, what you're telling them to eat, and where they're going to get their food, because it gets down to a very critical point when you got someone who's at that stage in their lives where they really don't have that time to waste. They don't have the time to get sick. They don't have the luxury of having downtime, because we all know that we're all on a shelf life when it comes to being an athlete, especially you're dealing with high schoolers, you're dealing with people who are going, collegiate athletes that are, gunning for the Olympics or, trying to get themselves to that podium. Downtime can be very critical. And I'm throwing it out there so that it's a little bit more robust of information that you guys can kind of latch onto and utilize as coaches, that you need to be mindful of the food. Food is everything to a coach, everything to an athlete. It's the very foundation of your performance. So that's what I had to say about the bay leaves. But there's, like I said, there's curries, there's peppers, and most of your leafy herbs that come from trees are going to be what you're going to find people using a lot in medicinal herbs for medicines and salves and things like that. And then they'll find that you'll find them in your food as well. So too much can be toxic. And where was I? I was doing something here. Okay, did you guys try who tried the salmon roll? Did you like it? Yeah? All right. I'll put a couple of more together. Any other questions?
A question about iron, especially with women athletes.
Uh-huh.
How do you, number one, tell, is there a way to just kind of judge by looking at an athlete or seeing their performance, or they have to get serum ferritin tests to see if they're lacking iron?
Well, you know, any kind of blood work you get is going to be the Cadillac of tests. Iron deficiencies are typically going to show up in sluggishness, loss of energy, enthusiasm, fatigue. For the most part, it's going to be in their neurological processes, the things that give them strength and whatnot is their blood. And women, when they go through their cycles, around a week before it hits is when you're going to typically find an iron deficiency. And you can run into anything from, of course, back cramping, and just major loss of enthusiasm and fatigue. So those are the times when coaches with female athletes, you know, it's nothing personal. It's just really kind of giving them that time, that window to regroup and just kind of lower the activity just a wee bit so that they can still be enthusiastic and feel comfortable with their training. But then as independent athletes, just know that you're not losing any ground because you guys go through that period. You're just buying some time to let your body do what nature requires of it, and then ramping it back up. But I would recommend that one thing that you should do is that you should start boosting your iron intake prior to that week before you're going to start that process, mainly in your ovulation cycles. When you start to ovulate, start increasing your iron, because that's when your body is starting to build up. It's preparing itself for a pregnancy, basically. And then when it lets down is when most of you feel that drop in your energy. And that happens typically a week before you get your cycle. So iron, you're going to get that out of your red meats. And if you're a vegetarian, you're going to look at most of your root-based vegetables. So, any other question? Nope. Okay, so I'll get back to making the sushi roll. I want to tell you too, flaxseed is another good source of fatty acids and good for your blood. Definitely good for helping your heart, your veins, your arteries volumize, because it of course is an antioxidant. I mean, not an antioxidant, but it's a fatty acid, and those fatty acids are excellent for athletes. And you guys definitely need to, I mean, if you're looking for something that's going to give you the edge, I mean, right, nutrition can do some wonderful things. I mean, it can help your heart volumize more blood. It can help your veins and your arteries dilate so that they can pump more to the muscles, which gives you more juice, more power, and definitely supports your endurance. So those, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say on the seed standpoint, I've been doing a lot of research with milled chia seed versus the whole seed.
Uh-huh.
And then like how the mill is already broken down. So basically if you were having a full chia seed, it would be no different than, doing a poppy.
Uh-huh.
Your body can't break it down as much.
Right.
I guess the mill, your body actually absorbs like 99%
Mm-hmm.
of those omega-3s.
Right.
So the differences between chia and poppy, chia and like flax, is there anything?
Well, the flaxseed, as far as those things are concerned, it's a mild difference, but the way you balance it out, if for whatever reason you might go and you might find that you have flaxseed in your cabinet and you might be low on the other, I just pop it in the blender when I make my smoothies, or when I put together my protein shakes. And that, just like wheat germ, I do the same thing with my wheat germ. And that can do almost the same thing, because cooking will open up the seed, heat will open it up, but what you don't want to do in any oil, any omega fatty acid, you don't want to heat it above 150 degrees, because then it can take an otherwise really healthy fat and turn it to a trans fat. So most people think, okay, I'm cooking in olive oil, I'm cooking in canola oil, I'm cooking in this oil, this is going to be, this is healthy but you're frying it, you know what I mean? So it's not the same, or you got it on the flame broiler, so it's not quite the same. So that's why you really want to take an opportunity to put those on your cold products. I'll sometimes, if I'm making my salad, I douse in flaxseed, sesame seed, or if I'm making, I'm basting my salmon. Salmon doesn't take very long at all to cook. So what I do is I'll smother it, baste it in a little bit of olive oil, no more than 5-7 minutes tops. And like I said, you can poach it. And all it's going to do is open up that seed and allow you to get the good stuff out. So, and your vegetables that way too. Some people are kind of thinking that raw is the only way to go. Raw is good, but I think if you can just put a little heat on your vegetables, just a little, not a lot, steam it. But don't steam it to death. No more than 5 minutes of your kale and your spinach or what have you. And you'll get so much more energy, so much more nutrient out of it. It'll make a world of difference. So all those little tidbits of techniques can make all the difference in the world in your nutrition. Because you got some people who I see come in and they're like, I'm vegetarian and, I'm having problems with this issue or that issue. And most of it is malnourishment. And then when you look at how they prepare their food, it's no wonder. Because either it's overcooked or, overprocessed. And they put the wrong things together to make it happen. But, I see it all the time. So if you guys really want to increase your body's vitality and performance, is don't overcook your food. Get adequate protein. Make sure you have really good hydration. And there's ways you can kind of tell where your hydration is. You can look at your urine. That's one. If your urine is yellow, sign up your hydration. If you can, pinch your skin and skin doesn't just bounce back, if it stays pinched for a while, you're really dehydrated. The other thing are the telltales. Your friends who are training with you, and I tend to run into this with people who take a lot of supplements, is the breath test. If your breath is a little stale, that's a sign that you need to up your water, and that you might be running a little too rich on your supplements. So certain things you can kind of back off on. The same thing in your natural movements, things like that. I mean, I don't want to get too personal, but look for all those things. All those things are factors. Energy is another one. If you're in the gym and you're performing, you wonder why, God, I just don't have it in me today. I mean, we all feel like that when we're going to the gym to train. We all feel like, man, why am I doing this? But when you get in there and you get the wheel going, and you get amped up, and you get charged up, and you know you're doing things right. I mean, it's always going to feel hard to get to that point. But when you get to that point and you actually start training, or even your athletes start to train, they just don't have it in them, look at their hydration. Start there first, because that's the easiest fix. So, any other questions? Okay, all right, so I'm going to finish this stuff up. I'm going to focus, and you guys can talk amongst yourselves and hang out and...
So Al, we're going to... Can you cook and talk?
I can cook and talk.
Okay. So, a lot of us have experience with the youth.
Uh-huh. Right.
And nutrition, can you talk a little bit about nutrition for an adult versus nutrition for a kid?
Okay. Well... Kids are metabolic dynamos. I mean, they roll over in bed and they burn 1,000 calories. So it's really different for kids who are developing. And most of us don't pay attention to there's two types, and here I am switching gears again. There's two types of foods that in sports nutrition that we utilize. One's called catabolic, and the other one's called anabolic. And you have catabolic and anabolic kind of be used at different points and different times during your training. With kids, you want to make sure they got plenty of the anabolic. Now, the catabolic is what you're going to use when they might be overweight. They might have those challenges. But for the most part, anabolic is good for the growth and development of muscle tissue, nerve tissue, things like that. Catabolic is good for energy, meaning that it's your fruits, most of your fruit, berries, stuff like that, your antioxidants. Those are good for your vitamins, your immune system, antioxidants, of course, dealing with free radicals, stuff like that. Well, most of the stuff the kids we don't really think that kids have to deal with too much. But as an adult, we definitely need a more comprehensive diet. We can't get away with McDonald's. Like kids can't either. I mean, we think they can, but they really can't afford it. But they recover from it a lot faster than we would. I recommend as the difference between the child athlete, and you know that as well as I do, some of these kids in high school are as tall and as same scale and size as some of our adult athletes. So in that respect, it can be the same as far as how much protein, carbohydrates, fats, same performance ratio, but you don't have to watch the calories as much in a young athlete as you would somebody who's finished growing. Development plays a huge part on caloric requirements. Because not only do you have to concern yourself with the development of a growing body, but they have to have enough to also break that body down and then to build it back up. And you're talking about someone who's still growing, breaking down and building up. It's a huge pull on their metabolic, on the metabolism. And with older athletes, we're basically trying to keep the muscle that we have. Pushing a little, we can still grow, We can still develop muscle, and most of us think after the age of you get a certain age, I don't want to mention any ages in here, but we think we get of a certain age that we can't develop our bodies anymore. We totally can. You can maintain, you can still build. You can still boost your testosterone levels. You can still grow from that. And just because we're of a certain age now where, we're thinking, okay, well, I'm going to hang up my track shoes or I'm going to put up my weight belt. It's not time yet. You guys can still push it like the younger athletes. And I feel that maybe I'm a little too optimistic, but I'm living it and I see it every day. People come in here who are in their 60s, who are hopeful that, hey, can you still work with this old, this aging body? If I can get in their head and change their thinking, the body just follows. You are what you think. So if you got an athlete who's got one foot in, got one foot in the grave, one foot on the track, it's going to be a tough fight because they're fighting two different paradigms. But if you can get them all in, and that you as coaches, you guys can do that because that's what we do as coach. And all you have to do is come with 10% of information on the technical side, but 90% of enthusiasm and optimism, and you can build anything. And that's dealing with the human spirit. But most of us, as coaches, we buy into the same ideology as the rest of our society sometimes, and we just we enjoy it. We're optimistic, but sometimes we tend to, not to say that that's who we are, because you guys are obviously here looking for, something that's going to give you the edge, either as athletes or as coaches. But there's a lot out there who are just in it for the job. They're in it because it's a paycheck, or they don't want to, they're holding up to their past, hoping that they got an athlete that might come along and run a world record. But you can still look at athletes that are retired, who are still circling around the idea that maybe I can come out of retirement. Can I still do this? Of course you can. And I just know that much about the human body. I've seen it. And I don't know how many of you guys are coaching retired athletes or athletes who are above the age of 35, but I'd like for you guys to look at that with a new optimism. But do the homework. The science is out there, and all roads are pointing to, pulling these athletes back out and putting them back on the track, getting them back in the ring, putting them back in the field. But most of us are retired because of the way we think. So, yeah.
In talking with, you talk about anabolic and catabolic.
Okay.
Can you touch upon rest and how important that is in supporting an anabolic and catabolic process?
Okay. Well, resting periods are important because I'm talking about real rest. I'm not talking about laying back with the remote control, watching TV. I'm talking about sound sleep. I'm talking about deep, that snoring, rattle the rafters sleep that you need when you are a training athlete. What that does when you sleep, you get into REM sleep, your body levels of melatonin goes up. And melatonin is important for the production of testosterone. Testosterone is present when melatonin is at its highest. And that is during your REM sleep. So that burst of testosterone is super important for your development. But not only for development of muscle, but your neurological processes, your respiratory system, the hormones, enzymes in your body, all that is a part of that process. It's part of the immune process. So what protects your body from, breaking down and recovery and all that is a part of that process that happens. So testosterone is one of the catalysts that boosts your thyroid. It helps with the thyroid. Thyroid helps with every other function in the body, neurological processes, the dilation of capillaries, arteries, heart, all that. So to get a superior athlete, sleep is essential. Not just rest, not just staying, getting off the track and letting your body heal. Of course, that's important as well. But I'm talking about that deep, undisturbed sleep.
What
So.
about before midnight? Is there any correlation, because kids like to stay up late, or younger people, or even some of the older people like to stay up late. Is there a correlation of getting quality sleep before midnight versus a solid 8 hours?
Well, the one thing that happens, and I've had this argument 1,000 times with other exercise physiologists, but what happens, and this is, some people believe in your natural sleep cycles, okay? Oh, you sleep when you fall asleep. And some people need more sleep than others. Well, I tend to believe that there's a natural process in all this. And there's a lot of things outside of your nature that's going to keep you up at night. Your jobs, stress, your emotional disposition. I mean, all those, what goes on with your body chemically can motivate, well, not motivate you, but can keep you up, keep your brain active. But you're going to have to figure out a way to shut that down, because this is what really happens. As the sunlight starts to go down, as the darkness starts to meet our eyes, and I'm not talking about, you can still be in a room of light, and your body cycles will still follow suit. Because once you walk out, we got to get some sunshine at some point, right? Well, the body's natural clock is so sophisticated, it will plug into nature in a heartbeat. So when the sunlight starts to go down, our melatonin levels start to build up in our blood. So then what happens, your body starts settling down, nerves will start to kind of become less active, and you'll start getting into your rest mode. And at some point, well, it should be before 12 midnight, that you get sleepy. And typically this happens right around 8, 9 o'clock, melatonin's at its peak, you start getting sleepy. But most of it, we got the TV show that we want to watch, we got to write this report for work, or we got to think about this concept, because I got this meeting tomorrow. Those things are what keeps us awake. But in a perfect world, if you had nothing else but focus on your training to think about, you could go to bed at 9 o'clock with ease if you're training, if you're doing what you're supposed to do. When the chickens go out and you hear that rooster crowing, right? That's 5 a.m., 4 o'clock in the morning. It's okay to be awake at that time, because that's your natural clock saying, okay, it's time to go to work. So most of us can't even dream of being up at 5 o'clock. Don't even want to think of it. But really, your natural clock is waking you up at 4:30, 5 a.m. in the morning. Naturally. Natural now. Now, if you're not, you're working out of that box, it's not going to be the same. But that might be your telltale that this is something that you might want to incorporate as an athlete, that you might want to start working on that time schedule, even for your athletes. You have a different athlete. They go to bed at 9 o'clock. What? You get up, 5 o'clock, do it in the track, and they will feel good about it. They work throughout the day, and come 5, 6 o'clock, they're winding down. By 8 o'clock, they're ready for bed. 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, they're way in dreamland. So that's why sleep is essential. because it does impact your metabolic process without a doubt.
Well, it's also building HGH, human growth hormone, while you're sleeping, so your body's developing the hormones it needs to men.
Right.
Cells of men.
Your that's what your testosterone is. Your natural testosterone is your HGH. And that's your human growth.
I'm not much of a calorie counter.
Uh-huh.
What is the optimum amount of calories a day? Looking back up flavors and stuff, it says this and that.
Okay, an optimum amount for a person your size?
Yeah, active.
Okay, now this is the deal. The way you're going to assess your caloric requirements is not only going to be on your muscle mass and your activity, but you're going to have to throw in there the recovery needed around those. I have anywhere between long distance athletes and professional boxers. I have an entertainer who's on the road all the time. I have a guy that's 7 feet tall, and I have a young lady that's 4'11". They're all over the board when it comes to caloric requirements. The way you want to assess that is looking at how much protein you need, like I told you, 46 grams per pound of muscle. Increase that by 5% if you are in your training mode, if you're a woman. For a guy, it's going to be as high as 10% more, okay? Now, fats, proteins, and carbohydrates are very different. You're going to times your protein and your calories from your protein and your carbohydrates by 4. For fats, it's by 9. And that'll make up your caloric requirements around your body weight. And that's how we do it with doing a basal, okay, doing the basal metabolism, okay? And the basal metabolism is really what your lean tissues require. It's not just your weight, because you got to look at the percentage of your weight is of body fat. Body fat is not your working tissues. You don't need to support your working tissues. I mean, you don't need to support your fat weight. You need to support your working tissues. That's your artery, I mean your respiratory, circulatory, muscular, skeletal system. That's what makes up your lean weight. Okay? So, any other questions? Yeah.
Earlier, Gwen stated that he was going to tell us about organic food, and I thought if you go to the grocery store, if it says organic, then it's organic.
Mm-hmm.
He said there's a different way to tell if the food is organic.
Okay, well, this is the difference. Well, it's not, everything that grows from the ground is organic. Everything that decomposes is organic. So what you got to be mindful is what the government has put on, basically what's told the difference between what you use as a herbicide, pesticide, and those things that are grown natural and free. And and Whole Foods does this the best. You go to Whole Foods, they have a section where they put all their organic labeled products. Just means that it was grown without herbicides or pesticides. And on the other side now, your meats now are different. Your protein, I call it the protein, because red meats, fish, seafood, all that falls in the same category, which means that it's grown hormone-free or without pesticides and, that sort of thing. So that's considered either range-fed or grass-fed or what have you when it comes to your beef. Chicken would be range-fed. Fish is a little different. They don't use hormones to grow fish, I don't think. Not that I've heard of. So, okay? All right. So I'm cooking. Okay, I'm cooking. So you guys, you know what, I used to think that I could, but these are questions that kind of get me, they get me going, so sorry. You talk to me about nutrition, and I'm gone. I'm a basket case. So, any other questions? You got a question? All right. Okay. You guys help yourself to some more spritzers. I'm going to go ahead and make these wraps and get this wrapped up really quick.